Hello, I'm Liam and this video is about how to grow leeks. I think leeks are an excellent vegetable to grow and I grow mine so they're available to be harvested in the early spring, from March onwards, and sometimes I'm still harvesting leeks in early May. There are early varieties that are ready towards the end of summer and then right through up until about Christmas. There's little difference between early and late varieties of leek in terms of taste and texture. The decision for a gardener is really when they want to eat their leeks. I find at the end of summer I often have shallots and onions available, and that's why I prefer late varieties that can be harvested in early spring when there's very little else around. So let's get started. Whether growing early leeks for August, September or late leeks for March or April, the seeds are sown about the same time. The difference is that different varieties take longer to grow, and also the late varieties are able to withstand the cold winter weather. For late summer varieties, it's best to sow the seed in March. Later varieties can be sown April, May. Also, if you do have a greenhouse or polytunnel, it's possible to get an early start in February. Whatever variety I'm growing, what I like to do is to sow the seed into pots and containers, and then when the plants are the right size, transplant them to their final growing positions. Leeks develop relatively deep roots, so it's important that the container allows the growing space for this. This is an example here. The container is about 6 inches deep. Leek seeds themselves are really small. I'll just pour some out onto my hand here. I hope this is coming out well on the camera. The seeds themselves are almost jet black, quite sharp and teeth-like. To sow them, I'll create small depressions on top of the soil like this. I wet the compost before sowing the seed and just pop the seeds on top, spacing them about 1 centimetre apart. And then once the seed is sown, I simply gently brush over the compost on top. And after a couple of months, the seedlings should look like this. These are about 9 inches high. I'm really pleased with how these are looking, and they're now ready to be planted out. Each of these individual seedlings will have developed a good root system. Well, at least I hope so. We're going to take a look in a moment. I'm going to empty the container now because I think that'll be the easiest way to separate the plants. And there we go. A quick word on the container I'm using. The container contains a false plastic base. How this works is that the roots of the plants come down to the plastic base, but underneath the plastic base there's a reservoir of water. The reservoir at the bottom of the container helps to keep the soil moist. What I also do is to keep the container in a place where it doesn't receive full sunshine. Half a day's sunshine I find is ideal. The leeks still grow fine, but that way the soil is less likely to dry out. To separate the plants, I gently break the compost apart. I have 3 plants from this clump, and I'll just gently tease them apart. Roots of leek plants are easy to see. They're bright white in colour, which is helpful when it comes to separating the plants. And there we have it, 3 seedlings ready to be planted out. The white stems of leeks is a result of excluding light, and the way to do that is to plant the leek seedlings in a deep hole, about 6 inches deep. The way I create the hole is simply to turn my trowel on its end and to push down into the soil. That's one done, about 6 inches deep. And then I space each hole about the span of my hand apart, roughly about 6 inches. And then each leek seedling is simply dropped into the hole. And then all that needs to be done is to pour some water into the hole. What the water does is to bring the roots of the leek plants into contact with the soil. I like to transplant the leeks when rain is forecast. That way the roots will have moist soil to grow in until the plants become established. If there's a period of really hot weather, I prefer to leave the plants in their containers. And if no rain is forecast, I prefer to wait at least until there are some cloudy days, and that way I can come down to the plots about once a week to water them, to keep the soil moist until the plants become established. As I'm separating the plants, I'm looking for ones like this that have developed a really good root system and quite a long stem. I'll put those in first to make sure I've got room for them, and smaller plants towards the end. This plant here is another good example. If possible, I try and leave some compost on the end attached to the roots, and that weight helps the plant drop into the hole nice and deeply. And that's it, that's all the leeks in. I do have a few leeks left over, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pot those up, because one or two of these seedlings may not establish, and that way I'll have some spares to put back in to replace them. I'm trying to get the roots nice and deep. That way they'll be surrounded by moisture. There we go. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 7 spares just in case any of those other seedlings fail. Once established, leek plants are really hardy, and they require very little care after planting out. Aside from the occasional hoe to keep the plants free of weeds, there's very little to do. The plants I've just planted out will take a few months to reach maturity, but what I'll now show is how the plants have developed in previous years. The leeks are still looking good. I have noticed over the last few weeks some of the leaves have got rust on them, so the worst affected leaves I've been picking off. I'm hopeful that by doing that it will keep the rust under control and it won't affect the harvest. I'm hoping these plants will mature in March and April and I'll be enjoying them in the spring. Here's an example of a leaf with some rust on it. It may be possible to see there the orangey coloured powder which is on the leaves, but as I say, by picking the worst affected leaves off, I hope to keep that under control. These leeks are really growing for harvesting in the spring, March, April time. Now a few weeks ago they were suffering from rust, but what I did was I picked the worst affected leaves off and the rust problem seems to have disappeared. However, the plants are looking a little on the droopy side, but that's really not surprising considering the cold and wet and windy weather that there has been down at the plot over the last few weeks, and I'm still hopeful that come the end of winter these plants will renew their growth and the stems will start swelling to have a really good harvest from them. It's just a case of waiting to see what happens. Alongside the brassica bed I have my leek bed. Now the leeks are definitely looking a little tired. I didn't harvest them in late autumn deliberately to hold them back for the spring. Despite how they look, I'm confident that when the warmer weather starts to arrive in the spring, they'll start to swell up and I'll be able to harvest them then, providing plenty of leeks for soups throughout March and April. At least that's the plan. Along from the old brassica bed, I have my bed full of leeks. These are looking as though they're not enjoying the cold weather. I'm still hopeful that they are going to spring back in the spring and they'll start swelling up nicely. Although, because of the prolonged period of cold weather, that is by no means certain, but that is what I'm hoping is going to happen. My leeks are recovering. There are a couple of plants there that have already swollen nicely. In a few moments I'll get back here to dig a couple up to take a look at them. I love leeks at this time of year because I think they make a great ingredient to soups. And that's it, the first 3 leeks of the year. A decent size actually, pretty pleased with that. I need to clean them up, make them presentable and take them home. That's a good start to the year. The leeks are looking really good. To my eyes, the leaves are looking slightly yellow. Other years the leeks have swelled up more, but this spring has been more challenging than normal. We had a period of hot weather and then a lot of cold weather, and the plants haven't grown as much as they have in previous years, but nevertheless they're still providing a good harvest. A week or so back I had my last harvest of leeks, but I noticed when picking them that a few of the plants had developed their flower stems, just like this one here. Now I wanted to clear the leek bed for another crop, so what I did was I transplanted a few leeks and planted them here, and what I hope will happen is there'll be a magnet for bees, and these plants are right outside my fruit cage, but really I'm doing it because I think they look good. In last month's video, I talked about transplanting leeks for their flowers. Since then, the plants have grown really strongly. The flower stems, if I just stand up, they're almost 1.5 meters in height. This bulb here is about 1.5 inches in width, and I'm hoping it's not too long now until the buds start to open up. Actually, this bud here is starting to open up. It will be great to see the leeks in flower. But one thing I am particularly pleased about is what's happened to the leek plants. I transplanted a few leeks here at the end of the growing season to leave them to flower in the hope of attracting bees, and that is exactly what is happening. I think the heads are quite spectacular to look at, covered in tiny flowers. And this head here, I hope this is coming out well on the camera, has a bee climbing all over it. And actually there's a bee that has just landed on this flower head too. Definitely a win-win, good to look at and good for the insects. And that's it. I hope you liked my video on how to grow leeks. If you did, please let me know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment. And for more videos like this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel in the usual way. If you do grow your own leeks or just fancy cooking some, I've also got a few recipe videos and I'll link to those here.